Sophia had always been the quiet one in her family, the one who smiled at the right moments, helped where she could, and stayed silent when things hurt. She had learned early that being the peaceful one didn't mean people would treat her kindly. It just meant she didn't fight back. When the wedding invitation arrived, printed on gold paper with her sister's name shining in the middle, Sophia stared at it for a long time. Her heart felt strange, heavy, and light at the same time. She hadn't spoken to her family much in the past 2 years. After the argument that made her pack her bags and leave, there had been only silence. Not a call. Not a message, nothing, yet here it was, a wedding invitation. Her younger sister was getting married. Sophia read the card again, wondering if it was sent out of duty or love. Maybe her sister felt she had to invite her, to keep up appearances. Maybe her mother told her to. Sophia couldn't tell. Still, she couldn't deny the small spark inside her chest that whispered, maybe things are different now. She placed the card on her kitchen table and looked around her small apartment. It wasn't much, just a cozy one-bedroom with peeling paint and a plant that refused to die no matter how many times she forgot to water it. She had made this place her home, quiet and peaceful, away from all the noise she'd grown up with. For days she debated whether to go. Some mornings she convinced herself she wouldn't. Why show up where she wasn't wanted? But at night, she'd lie awake remembering how she and her sister used to share secrets in the dark when they were little. Before jealousy, before the comparisons, before life turned them into strangers. Maybe showing up was her way of closing that chapter. The morning of the wedding, Sophia stood in front of her mirror, brushing her hair carefully. The dress she chose was simple but pretty, a soft blue that matched her eyes. She didn't have money for fancy jewelry or expensive shoes, but she looked at herself and thought, this will do. Her reflection stared back at her, nervous and unsure. You can do this, she whispered. It's just one day. The drive to her hometown took 2 hours. The roads were familiar, lined with trees she used to climb and small shops she once passed on her way to school. The closer she got, the tighter her chest felt. When she finally reached the church, cars were already parked everywhere, and laughter floated through the air. She sat in her car for a while, watching people walk in, smiling, hugging, greeting one another like family. She recognized some faces, older now but still familiar. A few had once called her the shy one, others the disappointment. She took a deep breath and stepped out. The moment she entered the building, the noise of chatter and music wrapped around her. She spotted her mother near the front, busy giving directions to someone about flowers. For a second, Sophia thought her mother might turn, see her, and smile. But she didn't. When Sophia finally approached, her mother's eyes flicked over her quickly. Oh, you came, she said, as if it were a surprise. Then she looked away. I got the invitation, Sophia said softly. Good, her mother replied, already distracted by another guest. That was it. No hug, no welcome, no I'm glad you're here. Just a few quick words and then back to the wedding chaos. Sophia stood there, feeling invisible in a room full of people. She found an empty seat near the back of the church. The ceremony began and her sister walked down the aisle glowing in white lace, beautiful and smiling. Everyone turned to look at her, phones raised to take pictures. Sophia smiled too, though her eyes stung a little. When the couple said their vows, Sophia remembered the times she and her sister used to talk about their dream weddings, how her sister wanted something grand, and she wanted something small and quiet. Now, sitting alone at the back, she realized how far apart their worlds had grown. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the reception hall, decorated with soft lights and flowers. Sophia followed the crowd, clutching her small purse like a shield. At the entrance, a young man with a clipboard checked names and pointed people to their tables. Name? He asked. Sophia, she said. He scanned the list and nodded. Table 19 near the back. She thanked him and made her way there, weaving through tables filled with laughter, clinking glasses and the sound of chairs scraping against the floor. Table 19 was in the far corner, partly hidden behind a tall flower arrangement. It had one chair. Just one. At first she thought it must be a mistake. Maybe she was early and the others hadn't arrived yet. But as the evening went on, the other tables filled up. Couples took selfies, kids ran around, people danced. Table 19 stayed empty, except for her. Sophia sat quietly, smiling whenever someone passed by, pretending she didn't notice how isolated she was. A few people glanced her way and quickly looked back, unsure what to say. No one came to join her. She picked at the food in front of her, pretending to be busy on her phone. Inside, she felt a familiar ache, a mix of embarrassment and sadness. It wasn't just about sitting alone. It was about feeling like she still didn't belong, even here, even today. When the first dance began, the lights dimmed. Her sister and the groom swayed to a soft song, surrounded by cheers and camera flashes. Everyone clapped and laughed, and Sophia sat in the shadow, smiling faintly. She wanted to be happy for her sister. Truly she did. But part of her wondered if anyone else noticed her sitting there. Her eyes wandered around the hall, and that's when she saw him. A man across the room was trying to balance a glass in one hand and calm a little girl tugging at his jacket with the other. The girl looked about 6 or 7, her hair tied in 2 playful braids. They both looked slightly out of place, like they didn't know many people either. Sophia smiled softly to herself. She didn't know them, but in that moment she felt a quiet connection. 2 people trying to blend into a crowd that didn't quite see them. The little girl caught Sophia's gaze for a second and waved shyly. Sophia waved back. Then the girl got distracted by a balloon and ran off toward the dance floor, laughing. Sophia looked down at her half-empty glass. The noise in the room grew louder, the music, the laughter, the clinking plates. But inside her, everything went quiet. Maybe this was how it would always be. Maybe no matter how much she tried, she'd always be the one on the outside looking in. Still, she stayed. She watched the dances, the speeches, the toasts. She smiled when her sister gave a thank you speech and glanced in her direction briefly, though it was hard to tell if it was intentional. By the time dessert came, Sophia was ready to leave. She picked up her small bag and stood, hoping to slip out quietly without drawing attention. She didn't want to cause a scene or make anyone uncomfortable. As she turned to go, she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. "Excuse me," a voice said. She turned around, surprised. It was the same man she'd noticed earlier, the one with the little girl. Up close, he looked kind but tired, like someone who'd been through a lot yet still managed to smile. "Sorry if this sounds strange," he said, scratching the back of his neck, "but my daughter keeps asking why you're sitting all by yourself." Sophia blinked, unsure what to say. "Oh, I'm fine, really, I was just about to leave." He shook his head. "She's a bit stubborn. I told her maybe you were waiting for someone, but she said no one should sit alone at a wedding." Sophia smiled softly, her heart warming a little. "She sounds sweet." "She is," he said, glancing at the dance floor where the girl was now spinning in circles. "Look, if you don't mind, would you like to join our table? It's just me and her, and honestly, I could use some adult company." Sophia hesitated. Part of her wanted to decline politely and slip away, but another part, the part that had been sitting in silence all evening, wanted to say yes. She looked toward his table, where the little girl was now waving eagerly at her. Then she looked back at him. His smile was genuine, not out of pity but simple kindness. "All right," she said quietly. "Thank you," he nodded, relieved. "Great. Come on." As Sophia followed him to his table, she couldn't help but glance one last time at the lonely corner she'd been sitting in. It looked so small now, so far away. She didn't know who this man was or why he'd chosen to notice her when no one else did. But for the first time that night, she felt something shift inside her. A small spark of belonging. Fragile but real. Maybe the night wasn't over yet. Sophia followed the man through the tables, feeling slightly awkward but grateful. The music was soft now, a slow tune playing as couples swayed on the dance floor. When they reached his table, the little girl smiled brightly and moved her juice glass aside. "You can sit here," the girl said excitedly, patting the chair next to her. "Thank you," Sophia said gently, her heart softening. "You have beautiful braids," the girl giggled. "Daddy did them," she whispered proudly. Sophia smiled at the man, surprised. "You did a great job," she said. He laughed. "Don't look too close or you'll see the mistakes." "I'm still learning." Something about his easy tone made Sophia relax a little. He didn't seem like the type who cared about appearances or gossip. There was a calmness about him that felt comforting. They sat together, and soon the little girl started talking about how she loved weddings because of the cake and the dancing. Her name was Lily, and she told stories with the kind of joy only a child could have. Sophia found herself laughing quietly as Lily described her favorite cartoon, and how her dad burned toast almost every morning. Her father groaned playfully. "Hey, you weren't supposed to tell our guest that." Sophia chuckled. "That's okay. I burn toast too sometimes," the girl gasped. "Then you can come to breakfast with us. We'll burn it together." They all laughed, and for the first time that night, Sophia's smile wasn't forced. After a while, the man leaned closer slightly, his voice softer. "So, I hope I'm not crossing a line, but were you really sitting alone that whole time?" Sophia looked down at her hands. "Yeah, I guess the seating chart didn't quite work out for me." "That's not right," he said, shaking his head. "Nobody should have to sit alone at a wedding. You came to celebrate, not feel invisible." She smiled faintly. "Well, I've had practice at being invisible." He looked at her for a moment as if trying to understand without prying. "Family?" Sophia nodded. "Yeah, it's complicated." He didn't ask for details, and she appreciated that. Instead, he poured her a glass of punch and said, "Well, consider yourself adopted by our table for the night. We've got room for one more." She looked around. "Seems like your daughter already made that decision for you." He grinned. "She runs the show. I just follow orders." They talked through dinner, sharing small stories about work, travel, and childhood memories. Sophia learned that he was a friend of the groom from work. He had lost his wife a few years ago and had been raising Lily on his own. There was no sadness in his tone when he spoke about it, just quiet strength, like a person who had accepted life's storms and learned to walk through them anyway. Sophia told him a little about her job at a small bookstore in the city, about how she loved reading but rarely found time for it anymore. He listened with genuine interest, nodding, smiling, never interrupting. The more they talked, the more at ease she felt. After dinner, the dance floor filled up again. Lily tugged at Sophia's sleeve. "Come dance with us," she said. "Oh, I'm not really a dancer," Sophia said quickly. "Neither am I," the man said, standing up. "That's why we'll look great together." Sophia laughed. "I'll just watch for now," but Lily wasn't having it. She pulled Sophia's hand and said, "Please, it's fun. You just move however you want." It was hard to say no to that kind of innocence. So Sophia gave in. She kicked off her shoes and followed them to the dance floor. At first she moved stiffly, trying not to draw attention, but then Lily started twirling, her laughter filling the room, and something inside Sophia loosened. The music sped up, the beat catchy and bright, and soon she was laughing too, really laughing. They danced like no one was watching, and for a few minutes all the heaviness melted away. When the song ended, Sophia was breathless, her cheeks flushed. Lily clapped her hands, proud of their performance. The man smiled at her, eyes crinkling warmly. "See? Not bad at all." "You two make it look easy," Sophia said, still catching her breath. "We've had a lot of practice," he said, glancing at his daughter. "She makes me dance at home almost every night." Sophia smiled. "That sounds nice." "It's our thing," he said simply. They sat back down, and the night carried on. The speeches began, long, emotional stories filled with laughter and a few tears. Sophia listened quietly, sipping her drink, feeling oddly comfortable in this corner of the room that didn't even belong to her. Then came the part she had been dreading, the family photos. Someone announced that all relatives of the bride should gather near the stage for a big group picture. Sophia froze for a moment, unsure if she should go. "You should," the man said gently. "It's your sister's big day." "I don't know," Sophia murmured. "I wasn't really included in any of the plans." He looked at her carefully. "Then make your own space in it. You're still family." There was something steady and kind in his voice, the kind of tone that made you believe what he said. Sophia took a deep breath and stood. "I'll try." She walked toward the stage, her heart pounding. The photographer was arranging everyone, calling out names. When she approached, a few relatives glanced her way, surprised. Her mother said something quietly to another aunt, who gave a polite but distant smile. The photographer motioned for her to stand at the end of the row. She obeyed, standing a few feet away from everyone else. The camera flashed, and just like that, it was over. No one said anything. No one asked her to stay for another picture. She turned to walk back toward her seat, forcing her expression to stay neutral. When she reached the table again, Lily was waving at her. "Did you smile?" Sophia nodded, sitting down. "I did." The man looked at her and said softly, "You did the right thing." "Maybe," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. but it still felt like I didn't belong. He nodded slowly. Sometimes the people we love don't know how to make space for us. Doesn't mean you don't deserve to be there. Sophia looked at him, her chest tightening. You sound like someone who's been through that too. He smiled faintly. Maybe. Life has a way of teaching us what really matters. They sat quietly for a moment, just listening to the music. Then Lily came back from the dessert table, holding 2 cupcakes. One for you, she said to Sophia, and one for Dad. I already ate mine. Sophia laughed and took it. Thank you, sweetheart. The frosting was too sweet. The cake a little dry, but it tasted like comfort. Later, as people began to leave, Sophia noticed her sister across the room surrounded by friends and family, glowing in her happiness. For a brief second, their eyes met. Sophia lifted her hand in a small wave. Her sister hesitated, then smiled faintly before turning away. Sophia turned back to the man and his daughter. Thank you, she said quietly, for letting me sit with you tonight. It meant more than you know. He shrugged lightly. You don't have to thank us. You were good company. Lily yawned, curling up in her chair. Are you leaving? She asked sleepily. Soon, Sophia said. Can we see you again? Sophia hesitated. She looked at her father, unsure if the question was too forward. He smiled. Maybe we can. We live nearby and Lily doesn't forget people she likes. Sophia smiled back. Then I guess I'll have to visit sometime. The little girl beamed, satisfied with the answer. As the night wound down, Sophia helped gather a few plates and glasses. The hall was almost empty now, the laughter fading, the lights dimming. Her feet were sore, her dress wrinkled, but her heart felt lighter than when she'd arrived. Walking out into the cool night air, she looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, she didn't feel completely alone. The man came out a few minutes later, carrying his sleeping daughter in his arms. Need a ride? He asked. Sophia shook her head. No, I'm good. Thank you, though, he nodded. All right. Drive safe, okay? I will. He smiled one last time, then turned to leave. She watched them walk toward their car, his daughter's small head resting on his shoulder, his hand steady beneath her. It was such a simple, ordinary moment, but it stayed with her. As she got into her car, Sophia sat for a moment before starting the engine. The hall behind her was quiet now, just the faint sound of music echoing from inside. She thought about the evening, the loneliness, the kindness, the laughter, the small moments that felt bigger than words. Sometimes, she realized, life doesn't give you the apology you're waiting for. Sometimes it gives you something better, a reminder that not everyone will make you feel unwanted. She smiled softly, turned the key and began the drive home. Maybe the night had started with loneliness, but it hadn't ended that way, and somewhere deep inside, Sophia felt that this wasn't the last time she'd see the man and his little girl. Something about the way they appeared in her life at the exact moment she needed it most felt like the beginning of something new. She didn't know what it was yet, but for the first time in a long while she was ready to find out. The next morning, Sophia woke up earlier than usual. The sunlight was streaming through the thin curtains of her apartment, and for a moment she just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying last night in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about the wedding, the music, the laughter, her sister's smile, and most of all, the kind stranger and his little girl who had made her night bearable. It still surprised her how something so small, like being invited to a table, could change the way a whole evening felt. If they hadn't spoken to her, she probably would have left early and driven home crying, but instead she had danced. She had laughed. She had felt human again. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a text from an unknown number. Hey, this is Daniel, from the wedding. Hope you got home safe. Lily says hi. Sophia smiled as she read it. She hadn't expected him to reach out, though she was secretly glad he did. She typed back quickly. Hi. Yes, I did. Please tell Lily I said hello. Hope you both got home okay too. A minute later, her phone buzzed again. We did. She fell asleep 5 minutes into the drive. Guess dancing wore her out. Thanks again for joining us last night. It was nice having company. Sophia stared at the message for a few seconds before replying. Thank you for inviting me. You and Lily made the night so much better. I really mean that. After that, neither of them said anything else, but Sophia kept smiling to herself all morning. It had been a long time since someone new had treated her with kindness without expecting anything in return. The next few days passed quietly. Sophia went back to work at the little bookstore near her apartment. It wasn't a busy place, but she liked it there. The smell of old pages, the soft sound of rain against the windows, the peaceful hum of quiet conversations. Still, she couldn't help but think of Daniel sometimes, his gentle laugh, the way he listened, how naturally he seemed to understand her silence. One afternoon, while she was arranging books on a shelf, her phone buzzed again. "Hey, this might sound random, but Lily's been asking if we can visit your bookstore. She says you promised." Sophia laughed softly. She hadn't exactly promised, but she had said she'd love to see them again. "I'd love that," she texted back. "Come by anytime. I'm here most days until 6. 2 days later, the bell above the bookstore door jingled, and there they were, Daniel holding Lily's hand, both smiling like sunshine had followed them in. "Hi," Lily said, running up to Sophia. "We came to see the books." Sophia crouched down, smiling. "I'm so glad you did. Come on, I'll show you the best ones." She led the little girl to the children's section, where colorful covers lined the shelves. Lily's eyes widened like she'd stepped into a dream. "Can I read one?" she asked. "Of course," Sophia said. "You can read as many as you want." While Lily sat on the rug, flipping through picture books, Daniel walked over to Sophia. He looked more relaxed than at the wedding, dressed in a simple shirt and jeans. "Hope we're not interrupting your day," he said. "Not at all," she replied. "This place could use more laughter anyway." They both smiled. There was something easy about talking to him. No pressure, no awkward pauses, just a quiet understanding that made everything feel natural. They spent almost an hour there. Sophia helped Lily pick out a few books, and Daniel told funny stories about how his daughter once tried to make pancakes without flour. Before they left, Sophia packed the books in a small paper bag and handed them to Lily. "These are for you," she said. Lily's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Really," Sophia said with a smile. "Just promise me you'll read them all." "I promise." Daniel reached for his wallet. "Let me pay for them." Sophia shook her head. "Don't worry about it. It's my gift." He hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "All right, but only if you let us take you out for coffee next time." She laughed softly. "Deal." After they left, Sophia stood by the window watching them walk away, Daniel holding his daughter's hand, the little paper bag swinging by her side. Something about the sight made her heart feel full and calm at the same time. A week later, Daniel kept his promise. He texted her one morning, asking if she was free in the afternoon. She was, so they met at a small cafe a few blocks from her shop. It was a quiet place with wooden tables and the smell of roasted coffee beans in the air. Lily was with him again, carrying one of the books Sophia had given her. "I already read this one twice," Lily announced proudly. Sophia grinned. "You're fast." "Did you like it?" "I loved it. The bear was my favorite." They sat together by the window. Lily sipped hot chocolate while Sophia and Daniel talked over coffee. They spoke about simple things: work, life, how hard it was to find good people to trust. Sophia told him about her childhood, how growing up had always felt like walking on eggshells. Daniel shared bits about his late wife, not in a sad way, but with warmth in his voice, like he still carried her love quietly. Sophia admired that about him, how he could talk about loss without letting it define him. At one point, Lily leaned against Sophia's arm and yawned. "You smell nice," she said sleepily. Sophia laughed. "That's probably just the bookstore smell." "Then I like bookstore smell," Lily mumbled, eyes half closed. Daniel chuckled. "I think she's adopted you." "I think so too," Sophia said softly. As the sun began to set, they walked out of the cafe together. The air was cool, the streetlights flickering on one by one. Daniel turned to her and said, "I'm really glad we met that night. It's strange, isn't it? How life puts the right people in your path when you least expect it." Sophia nodded. "Yeah, I think about that a lot lately." They stood there for a few seconds, smiling at each other, both unsure how to end the moment without breaking it. Then Lily grabbed Sophia's hand. "Can we see you again soon?" Sophia looked at Daniel, who smiled. "I think we can arrange that." Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes they'd meet for lunch. Sometimes Daniel would drop by the bookstore just to say hello. Lily always came along, bringing drawings or stories she'd made up. It wasn't planned or rushed. It just happened naturally, like something gentle unfolding. But despite how good it felt, Sophia sometimes caught herself hesitating. She would lie awake at night wondering if she deserved this small happiness. After all, she had spent so many years believing she wasn't enough, for her family, for anyone. One evening, while closing the shop, she found herself lost in thought. Daniel had stopped by earlier that day with coffee for her, just because. Before leaving, he'd said, "You're easier to be around than most people I know." It was a simple compliment, but it stayed with her. As she turned off the lights and locked the door, Sophia realized something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being understood. Still, deep down, she feared it might not last. People had walked out of her life before. Family, friends, people who promised they cared. What if this was just another moment that would fade away? The thought lingered until the next weekend, when an unexpected call came from her mother. "Sophia," her mother's voice said, cautious but firm, "your sister and her husband are having a small dinner next week. She wanted me to invite you." Sophia froze. "A dinner?" "Yes, just close family." She thought it might be nice to talk. Sophia didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to decline. Another part whispered that maybe this was her chance to finally mend what had been broken. "I'll think about it," she said quietly. After hanging up, she sat on her couch, staring at her phone. The first person she thought to tell was Daniel. Not because she needed advice, but because she knew he'd listen without judging. She texted him. "Got invited to a family dinner. Not sure how to feel about it." He replied a few minutes later, "Whatever you decide, make sure it's for you, not for them." Sophia smiled at the message. It was exactly what she needed to hear. That night she stood by her window watching the city lights flicker below. She thought about everything that had happened in such a short time. The wedding, the loneliness, the unexpected friendship that grew from it. Maybe she wasn't invisible after all. Maybe sometimes life had to strip everything away just so you could see who truly cared. As she got ready for bed, her phone buzzed one last time. Lily says goodnight. She wants to read you her new story soon. Sophia smiled, her heart warm. She typed back, "Good night to both of you. I'd love to hear it." When she turned off the lights, she lay there in the dark, a small smile still on her lips. For the first time in years, tomorrow didn't scare her. The week leading up to the dinner passed slower than usual. Every morning, Sophia woke up with a knot in her stomach, wondering if she should go or not. Her mind kept swinging between curiosity and fear. What if her sister only invited her out of guilt? What if her mother still looked at her the same way, as the one who never fit in? At work, she tried to keep herself busy, rearranging shelves and helping customers, but her thoughts kept drifting back to that dinner. One afternoon, Daniel stopped by the bookstore again. He was holding 2 cups of coffee, as he often did now. "You look like you've got a storm in your head," he said gently, setting 1 cup in front of her. Sophia gave a small smile. "You're not wrong. Still thinking about that dinner?" "Every day," she admitted. "Part of me wants to go. The other part keeps saying, 'What's the point?'" Daniel leaned against the counter, thinking for a moment before he spoke. "You know what I've learned? Sometimes we don't go to fix things. We go to make peace with them, even if nothing changes." Sophia looked at him, the warmth in his words reaching a place deep inside her. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not," he said, "but you'll feel lighter afterward. Even if it's awkward, at least you'll know you tried." She nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right." Lily popped her head from behind a shelf, holding up a book. "Can we get this one?" "It's about a rabbit who builds a spaceship." Sophia laughed softly. "Only if you promise to tell me how it ends." "I will," Lily said proudly, already skipping back to her father. Later, after they left, Sophia stood at the counter sipping the rest of her coffee, feeling a quiet calm settle over her. Maybe she was finally ready to face her past, not to fix it, but to stop running from it. The evening of the dinner arrived faster than she expected. She stood in front of her mirror again, like she had before the wedding, smoothing the fabric of her simple dress. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were steadier this time. "You'll be fine," she whispered to her reflection. When she reached her sister's house, the lights were already on. It was the same house she'd grown up in, though it felt different now. Newer furniture, brighter paint. but the same air of formality that used to make her feel out of place. She rang the bell and waited. After a few seconds, her sister opened the door. "Hi," her sister said. Her smile looked a little forced but not unkind. "You came?" "I said I would," Sophia replied softly. Her sister stepped aside. "Come in. Everyone's in the dining room." The smell of food filled the air. Roasted vegetables, baked chicken, the kind of meal that used to fill their home on Sundays. Sophia followed her sister through the hallway, her heart thudding. Her mother sat at the table, her expression calm but unreadable. A few other relatives were there too. Her aunt, her uncle, her sister's husband. Everyone greeted her politely, some with surprise, some with hesitation. Sophia sat down quietly, trying to breathe normally. For the first few minutes, the conversation stayed on safe topics: work, the weather, funny stories about the wedding. No one mentioned the past. No one asked her how she'd been since she left. She watched her sister laughing with her husband, their faces glowing with the comfort of belonging. It was a familiar sight, one that used to make her feel small. But tonight she didn't feel the same sting. Maybe time really did soften old wounds. Halfway through dinner, her mother finally turned to her. "You look well," she said. "Thank you," Sophia replied carefully. "I've been doing okay." Her mother nodded, then returned to her plate. That was all. No apologies, no questions, just polite distance. Her sister, on the other hand, seemed more at ease. "I'm glad you came, Sophia. It's been a while." "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Sophia said honestly. "But I thought, maybe it was time." Her sister gave a small smile. "I think so too." The rest of the evening went smoother than she expected. There were still long pauses and quiet glances, but no arguments. No tension thick enough to choke on. It wasn't warmth, not yet, but it was peace. And that was something. When dessert came, her sister's husband asked about Sophia's work. She told him about the bookstore, about the little girl who came in almost every week. "She's sweet," Sophia said, smiling. "Her name's Lily. She reminds me what kindness looks like." Her sister looked curious. "Is she someone's daughter you're close to?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Her father's a friend. I met them at your wedding, actually." "Oh, really?" Her sister's tone softened, and for the first time in a long time she sounded genuinely interested. "That's nice. You deserve good people around you." Sophia smiled quietly. "Yeah, I think I finally found a few." When the dinner ended, her mother stood to hug her, a stiff, awkward hug, but a hug nonetheless. Her sister walked her to the door. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. "Thanks for inviting me," Sophia replied. They stood there for a second, both unsure of what to say next. Then her sister said, "Maybe we can talk more often now. Not about the past. Just start again?" Sophia felt her throat tighten. "I'd like that." As she drove home that night, she didn't cry like she thought she might. Instead, she smiled quietly to herself. It wasn't a perfect reunion, but it was a step. Small, fragile, but real. When she got home, she found a message waiting on her phone. "Hey, how did it go?" She smiled and typed back, "Better than I expected." No yelling. No tears, just calm. A reply came almost instantly. "That's a win. Proud of you." She could almost hear Daniel's warm tone through the screen. The next weekend, she met him and Lily again at the park. It was one of those perfect afternoons, golden sunlight, the smell of grass, children running everywhere. Lily ran ahead to the swings, and Daniel and Sophia walked behind her slowly. "She talks about you all the time," he said, watching his daughter play. "You've become her favorite person after her teddy bear." Sophia laughed softly. "I'll take second place to a teddy bear any day," he smiled, glancing at her. "You seem lighter today." "I think I am," she said. "I saw my family again. It didn't fix everything, but it didn't break me either." He nodded. That's how healing usually starts, quietly. They sat on a bench, the sound of children's laughter filling the air. For a long moment, neither spoke. There was no need to. After a while, Lily came running back, holding 2 dandelions. "Make a wish," she said, handing one to each of them. Sophia held the delicate stem in her hand, its white fluff glowing in the sunlight. "What should I wish for?" she asked. Lily shrugged. "Anything you want." Sophia closed her eyes. She didn't wish for money or love or success. She just wished for peace, the kind that stays even when life gets hard. When she opened her eyes, Daniel was looking at her. his own dandelion gone with the wind. "What did you wish for?" he asked. She smiled softly. "If I tell you, it won't come true," he chuckled. Fair enough. The rest of the afternoon passed easily. They talked about simple things, though movies, books, childhood dreams. There were no heavy words, no awkward silences. It felt natural, like they'd known each other for years. When the sun began to set, Lily grew sleepy. Daniel lifted her into his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. Sophia watched them with quiet admiration. The tenderness, the patience, the gentle love that seemed to flow effortlessly between them. "She's lucky to have you," Sophia said softly. He looked at her, his eyes kind. "I think we're both lucky to have her." They walked together toward the parking lot. As they reached her car, Daniel hesitated. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course," she said. "When I saw you sitting alone that night at the wedding," he began slowly, "I almost didn't come over. I thought maybe you wanted to be left alone. But something about the way you were looking around, I just couldn't walk past." Sophia listened quietly, her heart thudding. "I'm glad I didn't," he said simply, "because that one small choice changed a lot more than I expected." Sophia felt her throat tighten, her eyes stinging with warmth. "It changed a lot for me, too," she whispered. They stood there for a moment, the cool evening air wrapping around them, neither wanting to say goodbye. "See you soon?" he asked. "Definitely," she said, smiling. He smiled back, then turned to carry his daughter to their car. Sophia watched them leave, her heart full of something she hadn't felt in years: hope. When she got home that night, she sat by the window, thinking about everything that had led her here: the wedding, the loneliness, the kindness of a stranger who refused to let her sit alone. Life had a strange way of bringing people together at the right time. Maybe not to fix all the broken pieces, but to remind you that you still deserved warmth, laughter, and connection. As she looked out at the quiet city, Sophia realized that for the first time in a long while, she wasn't waiting for something bad to happen. She was simply grateful for second chances, for gentle people, and for the feeling of belonging that had finally found its way back to her. The next morning, Sophia woke up to sunlight slipping gently through the curtains. For a moment she lay still, listening to the quiet hum of the world outside, the faint sound of cars, a bird somewhere nearby, the ticking of the clock on her wall. Everything felt calm, different somehow. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the soft clouds move slowly across the pale blue sky. The events of the past weeks replayed in her mind: the wedding, the awkward dinner, the laughter at the park, and Daniel's quiet words at the end of the night. It all felt like a blur, yet each memory carried its own warmth, like small lights scattered through the fog of her past. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was standing on the outside of life, watching everyone else move forward. She felt like she was part of something again, even if it was small: a few kind people, a few shared smiles, a growing sense of peace inside her chest. Later that day, her phone buzzed with a message. "Morning. Lily wants to know if you'll come to her school fair next Saturday. She says it's very important business." Sophia smiled instantly as she read it. She typed back, "Tell her I wouldn't miss it for the world." When Saturday arrived, she showed up at the school with a small box of homemade cookies. The air was filled with the scent of popcorn and the cheerful noise of children laughing and running. Bright banners waved in the wind, and parents gathered near the food stalls, chatting happily. Lily spotted her first, waving so hard that her little hat nearly fell off. "You came," she squealed, running to hug her. "Of course," Sophia laughed, hugging her back. "You think I'd miss this?" Daniel followed a few steps behind, smiling at the sight of them. "You're officially part of the fair crew now," he said. "She's been talking about this all week." Sophia grinned. "She's the real boss here." They spent the afternoon walking from booth to booth. Lily made Sophia play ring toss, face painting, and a balloon game that she insisted required serious teamwork. Sophia couldn't stop laughing. She hadn't laughed that freely in so long that it surprised her how natural it felt now. At one point, while Lily ran off to show her painted butterfly face to her teacher, Daniel and Sophia found a quiet bench near the playground. Children's laughter filled the air and the sun shimmered through the leaves. "She adores you," he said softly. "I haven't seen her this attached to anyone in a long time." Sophia looked at him, her eyes gentle. "She makes it easy to care." "You both do." He smiled, and there was a pause. Not awkward, but full of unspoken understanding. "Can I tell you something?" he asked after a moment. "Of course." "When my wife left," he began quietly, "I thought that was it, that my world had shrunk down to just me and Lily. I stopped letting people in because I was afraid of losing them again. But then you came along, and somehow it doesn't feel so small anymore." Sophia's throat tightened. "You didn't lose me," she said softly. "You helped me find myself again." He looked at her, and in that silence there was more honesty than words could ever hold. Lily came running back then, breaking the stillness. "Come on, there's a dance. Everyone's going." "A dance?" Sophia laughed. "I don't think I remember how." "Then we'll learn together," Lily declared. Grabbing both their hands before Sophia could protest, she found herself pulled toward the open space where music was playing. Parents and children danced together, laughing and twirling under the afternoon sun. It was a simple, joyful chaos that somehow felt like home. Daniel took her hand, and she felt that familiar warmth again, the same feeling from the wedding, only now it wasn't out of pity or pretending. It was real. "Don't worry," he said with a small grin. "I'll lead," Sophia laughed, shaking her head. "That's what you said last time, remember?" "I do," he said, his voice low and sincere. "That was the first time I saw you smile." They moved slowly to the music, their steps unsure but steady. Around them, children laughed and couples twirled, but all Sophia could focus on was the quiet comfort of his hand in hers, and the gentle rhythm of their hearts syncing with the song. After the dance, they sat again, catching their breath. Lily was busy chasing bubbles nearby. "She's going to remember this day forever," Sophia said. "So will I," Daniel replied. The sun began to set, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The fair started to empty, but none of them seemed in a hurry to leave. When it was finally time to go, Lily fell asleep in her father's arms, her small hand still clutching the corner of Sophia's scarf. Daniel turned to her. "I don't say this lightly, but thank you for showing up that day, for sitting with us, for everything after." Sophia smiled, her eyes glistening. "You don't have to thank me. You were the one who made room for me when no one else did." He looked at her for a long moment. "Then maybe we both did something right." They stood there in the golden light, the world quiet around them. It wasn't a grand, cinematic ending. No sudden confessions, no dramatic promises. Just two people who had found comfort in each other's company after too many years of loneliness. The weeks that followed were simple, but full. They saw each other often, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for park visits, sometimes just for quiet walks where words weren't necessary. Sophia still had moments when her old fears whispered in her ear that she didn't belong, that happiness wasn't meant for her. But then she'd think of Daniel's steady voice or Lily's laughter, and those thoughts would fade like smoke in the wind. One evening, as she closed the bookstore, she saw a familiar face at the window. Daniel was standing there holding a small bag of takeout. "Hungry?" he asked. She smiled. "Always." They sat together among the quiet rows of books, eating noodles from paper boxes and laughing about the little things, like how Lily had started teaching her toys to read by showing them pictures. At one point, he said softly, "You ever think about what might have happened if I hadn't walked up to you that night?" Sophia looked at him thoughtfully. "I think we both would have missed something we didn't even know we needed." He nodded. "Maybe life isn't about big plans. Maybe it's just about moments like that, small choices that change everything." She smiled. "That's starting to sound like a line from one of the books we sell." He laughed quietly. "Maybe I've been hanging around the bookstore too much." They both laughed then, and for a while there was only warmth, the kind that comes not from grand gestures, but from the simple knowledge that you're no longer alone. As the night wore on, the city outside grew still. The lights inside the shop cast a soft glow around them. Daniel leaned back, watching her. "You look happy," he said. "I am," Sophia replied. "Not because everything's perfect, but because I finally stopped trying to prove I deserve peace." He smiled gently. "You always did." In that moment, Sophia realized something profound. Sometimes belonging doesn't come from being accepted by everyone. It comes from finding one person or two who see you exactly as you are and choose you anyway. Weeks later, she returned to her family home for Sunday lunch. This time she wasn't nervous. Her mother greeted her with a faint but genuine smile, and her sister hugged her longer than usual. There was no awkwardness, no invisible wall between them, just quiet understanding. At one point, her mother said, "I saw the pictures you posted from the fair." "You looked happy," Sophia nodded softly. "I was." Her mother hesitated, then said, "I'm glad. You deserve that." It was only 4 words, but they meant more than years of silence ever had. That evening, as Sophia walked home, she stopped by the park. The swings were empty now, the air cool and quiet. She sat down, feeling the gentle sway beneath her. So much had changed in such a short time, yet it all began with something so small. A single act of kindness at a wedding where she thought she didn't belong. She looked up at the night sky and smiled. Maybe life had been trying to show her all along that love doesn't always come crashing in like a storm. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in a borrowed chair, a shared laugh, a warm cup of coffee, or a child's innocent hand reaching for yours. And as she sat there under the fading light, Sophia whispered a silent thank you to the universe, to second chances, and to the man who once said, "Act like you're with me," and meant it in the kindest way possible, because he hadn't just saved her from loneliness that night. He'd shown her that even in a world that can feel cold and divided, there are still people who make room for others, not out of pity, but out of love. And that, she realized, was what it truly meant to belong.